Hi, this is the presentation brought to you by the Group 1, which is about the relationship between inflation and unemployment. First, the relationship between inflation rates and unemployment rates is inverse. Graphically, this means the short-run Phillips curve is L-shaped.
From 1861 until the late 1960s, the Phillips curve predicted rates of inflation and rates of unemployment. However, from the 1970s and 1980s onward, rates of inflation and unemployment differed from the Phillips curve prediction. The relationship between the two variables became unstable.
Key terms: Phillips curve, a graph that shows the inverse relationship between a rate of unemployment and the rate of inflation in an economy. Stagflation, inflation accompanied by stagnant growth, unemployment, or recession.
Phillips curve. Phillips hypothesis that when demand for labor is high and there are few unemployment workers, employers can be expected to bid wages of quite rapidly. However, then demand for labor is low and unemployment is high, workers are reluctant to accept lower wages than the prevailing rate, and as a result, wage rate fall very slowly.
A second factor that affects wage rate changes is the rate of change of unemployment. If business is booming, employers will bid more vigorously for workers, which means demand for labor is increasing at fast pace.
In short, the Phillips curve relates the rate of inflation and the rate of unemployment. The Phillips curve argues that unemployment and inflation are inversely related. As levels of unemployment decrease, inflation increases. The relationship, however, is not linear.
Theoretical Phillips curve. The curve shows the inverse trade-off between inflation and unemployment. As one increases, the other must decrease. In this image, an economy can either experience 3% unemployment at the cost of 6% of inflation, or increase unemployment to 5% to bring down the inflation levels to 2%.
History. The early idea for the Phillips curve was proposed in 1958 by economist A.W. Phillips. In his original paper, Phillips tracked wages changes and unemployment changes in Great Britain from 1861 to 1957 and found that there was a stable, inverse relationship between wages and unemployment.
In 1960, economists Paul Samuelson and Robert Solow expanded this work to reflect the relationship between inflation and unemployment. Because wages are largest component of prices, inflation rather than wages changes could be inversely linked to unemployment.
Data from the 1960s modeled the trade-off between unemployment and inflation fairly well. The Phillips curve offered potential economic policy outcomes. Fiscal and monetary policy could be used to achieve full employment at the cost of higher price levels, or to the lower inflations at the cost of lowered employment.
However, when government attempted to use the Phillips curve to control unemployment and inflation, the relationship fell apart. For many years, both the rate and inflation of the rate and employment were higher than the Phillips curve would have predicted, a phenomenon called stagflation.
Bottom line. The inverse correlation between inflation and unemployment depicted in the Phillips curve works well in the short run, especially when inflation is fairly constant as it was in the 1960s. It does not hold up over the long run, since the economy reverts to the natural rate of unemployment as it adjusts to any rate of inflation.
Because it is also more complicated than it appears at first glance, the relationship between inflation and unemployment has broken down in periods like the stagflationary 1970s and the booming 1990s. Overall, the trade-off between higher inflation and lower unemployment only works as a temporary measure and is not a universal panacea available to policymakers. Thanks for watching. This is presented by Gonzales Isa Marie, Estelle Unvarnished May, Ticard Joel Jr., Lastimoso Jundi, Piera Aljun, Euphemia Reniel John, Lamata Chris Emmanuel, and Las Piñas Liza. Thank you.